Marxism had a profound impact on contemporary culture, and it has also a tremendous effect on various disciplines. Today, our group will give its ideas about the movements of Marxism and its greatest contributions. Marxism, in a narrow sense, refers to the theories and thoughts of Karl Marx and his collaborator Friedrich Engels. Understanding of Marxism changes depending upon what one takes as a central idea of these thoughts. This theory contains a broad range of interpretations. For all, Marxism helped to consolidate, inspire, and radicalize elements of the labor and socialist movements in Western Europe. At this time, we will move forward for the classical Marxism. Classical Marxism, it states that each significant period in history is constructed around a particular mode of production that has resulted in an organized society to produce the necessaries in life. So what are those necessities in life? For example, food, shelter, or clothes, and etc. Each mode of production produces, number one, specific ways of obtaining the necessaries of life. Where do people get the resources in order to provide their necessities? Number two, specific social relationships between workers and the one who control the mode of production, and specific social institutions. To shorten this analysis, classical Marxism claims how society produces its means of existence, its particular mode of production that is ultimately determines the political, social, and cultural shape of that certain society and its possible development. The mode of production of material life conditions the social, political, and intellectual life. In the end, classical Marxism used to specify a temporal logic field but does not reflect a value of judgment. Those are the contributions for the classical Marxism, and this has been Lenie Mojica, your reporter.
Althusserism is created by Louis Althusser. He was born on October 16, 1918 in Algiers. He was a French Marxist, philosopher, and member of the French Communist Party. He was a professor at the École Normale Supérieure in Paris. He was a writer of essays on the history of philosophy, the theory of knowledge, and dialectical and historical materialism. Althusser treats the problems of the dialectic as logic, primarily of the basis of analysis of the conceptual philosophic structure of capital. He concentrates his attention on the theoretical and cognitive tasks that arise in studying the structure of integrated developing systems. Louis Althusser combined Marxism with the scientifically oriented methods of structuralism. In his essay, Ideology and the Ideological State Apparatus, and analyzed how the dominant systems enforce their control by subtly molding their subjects through ideology. Ideology has been earlier defined by Engels as false consciousness, to refer to the ways in which hegemony is naturalized, justified, and sustained in society, and to the invisible ways in which the cultural forms seek to ensure the perennial dominance of the ruling class. Also, as all I know, repressive state apparatus consists of the army, the police, the judiciary, and the prison system that operates primarily by means of mental and physical coercion and violence.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I am Irish, and I am now going to give a short recap or a short summary review about the topic hegemony. So first, let's define what is hegemony. Hegemony is the dominance of one group over another, often supported by legitimating norms and ideas. The associated term hegemon is used to identify the actor, group, class, or state that exercises hegemonic power or that is responsible for the dissemination of hegemonic ideas. According to Gramsci, hegemony is a political concept developed to explain the absence of socialist revolutions in the Western capitalist democracies. The concept of hegemony is used by Gramsci to refer to a condition in process in which a dominant class does not merely rule a society but leads it through the exercise of intellectual and moral leadership. Hegemony involves a specific kind of consensus. A social group seeks to present its own particular interest as the general interest of the society as a whole. In this sense, the concept is used to suggest a society in which, despite oppression and exploitation, there is a high degree of consensus, a large measure of social stability, a society in which subordinate groups and classes appear to actively support and subscribe to values, ideals, objectives, cultural and political meanings which bind them to and incorporate them into the prevailing structures of power. Although hegemony implies a society with a high degree of consensus, it should not be understood to refer to a society in which all conflict has been removed. What the concept is meant to suggest is a society in which conflict is contained and channeled into ideologically safe harbor. Hegemony never simply power imposed from above. It is always the result of negotiation between dominant and subordinate cultures, a language marked by both resistance and incorporation. Hegemony is organized by those whom Gramsci designates organic intellectuals, that is to say that all men and women have the capacity of intellectual endeavor, but only certain men and women have in a society the function of intellectuals. Organic intellectuals functions as a class organizers. It is their task to shape and to organize the reform of moral and intellectual life. Using hegemony theory, popular culture is what men and women make from their active consumption of the texts and practices of the culture industries. Youth subcultures are perhaps the most spectacular example of this process. The concept of hegemony allows students of popular culture to free themselves from their disabling analysis of many of the previous approaches to the subject. From this perspective, popular culture is a contradictory mix of competing interests and values. The commercially provided culture of the culture industries is redefined, reshaped in strategic acts of selective consumption and productive acts of reading and articulation, often in ways not intended or even foreseen by its producers. That would be all for my part. Thank you so much for listening.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miranda Oribe from BSA 2A English, and for today I'm going to tackle all about the topic post-Marxism and cultural studies. So please bear with me as I further discuss to you what the topic all about. So first, let me define to you what is the meaning of cultural studies. Cultural studies seeks to understand and explain how culture relates to the larger society and draws on social theory, philosophy, history, linguistics, communication, media studies, and more to assist and evaluate mass media. Since its inception in 1960s Britain, cultural studies has been recognizable and recurring interactions with Marxism, most clearly in culturalist renderings along a spectrum of extension with political economy approaches. Marxist traditions and inflections appear in the seminal works of Raymond William and Thompson. Works on the culture industry inspired by Frankfurt School in 1930s Germany. Challenges by Stuart and the others of the structuralist theories of Louis and writings on consciousness and social change by George, perhaps the most pronounced on cultural studies which influences it. It appears in a multiple and diverse interpretation of Antonio's concept of hegemony. Cultural studies
including critical theory, has been invigorated by Marxism, even as recurring critique of economic determinism appears in most investigation and analysis of cultural practices. Marxism has no authoritative definition or application. Nonetheless, Marxism insists on materialism as the precondition for human life and development, opposing various historical conjuncture. Second, Marxism finds material reality of including all forms of society and culture to be historical phenomenon. Humans are framed by their conditions and in turn have agency to make social changing using material knowledge. The historical condition for Marxist capitalist society can best be historically and materially understood as social relation of production of the society based on labor power and capitalist private ownership of the means these are served as produced. Capitalists withhold the profits from the value of goods and services produced, such as social relation, organize individuals and groups into discriminable to manifest social classes that are diverse, and the rule is to maintain the social and cultural activities. Thus, for Marxism, ideologies arise in an easy tandem with social relation of power. Ideas and practices appear and are constructed, distributed, and lived across society. Dominant ideologies parallel and refract conflictional social relation of power. Ideologies attempt to transform existing and social relation may express in views, values, and expectation. So that's all for my given or my assigned topic. Thank you so much for listening.